Hey everybody! Hey, it's Dr. Mitzi. I am so excited to be here live with you guys tonight, talking a little bit about MS and talking a little bit about my journey as a neurologist. So I am listening to some of my favorite music, so I probably will starting my broadcast with a little bit of music. Right now I'm listening to one of my favorite artists, PJ Morton. He is so amazing. So I've been following PJ for a very long time, and his last live album, Gumbo, was the business. So I love that album. I do not own the rights to the music, but I love listening to PJ, so it always kind of gets me excited and ready to do the next thing. So anyway, I hope that everyone is doing well this evening. I changed my time to Monday evenings at 8:30 since I'm momming, and so I get a chance to put my kids to bed and read everybody bedtime stories and all that good stuff. So then I can kind of settle down and get ready to do the live stream and talk to you guys a little bit. So I hope that you all had a great day. Mondays are a little bit tough, but I'm trying to change my perspective about Mondays. If anybody saw my post today, I put some posts up about marvelous Mondays and the beauty of Mondays, because it is really a new opportunity to kind of start a new week and walk in our purpose and fulfill our destiny. And it's for those of us that are working, it's an opportunity to make some dough, which is not a bad thing. So I'm trying to change my perspective about Mondays and look at them as a wonderful thing and as a new start instead of kind of, gosh, I have to go back to work on Monday. So anyway, all right, so I'm going to turn PJ down right now. All right, and talk a little bit to you guys. So again, I'm Dr. Mitzi Williams. I'm a board certified neurologist and MS specialist. And, I have a lot of interests, including music and neurology, music in the brain. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey to neurology, and then I'm going to talk, hey, Dr. Tawana, thank you for logging in. Talk a little bit about my journey to neurology and why I chose neurology and why I chose MS. And then I'll talk a little bit about the importance of treatment. So neurology is actually a really cool specialty. So I call myself the nerdy neurologist because most neurologists are kind of nerdy, but I'm kind of nerdy, but not really nerdy. I think I'm pretty cool. So anyway, so I call myself the nerdy neurologist, and I love neurology, and I chose neurology because neurology reminds me kind of being a detective. So I've always loved mysteries. I've always loved things like, if anybody knows me, hey, Auntie Weena, if anybody knows me, they know that if I have free time, I am good for a Murder, She Wrote marathon. Okay, so I will sit all day on my couch and watch Jessica Fletcher, baffle all these policemen and all these, people and solve all these murders. So I've always loved detective stories. I've always been a big Agatha Christie fan, Sidney Sheldon, Mary Higgins Clark. So I love mysteries. And so neurology is cool to me because being a neurologist is kind of like being a detective, right? So basically we see a symptom on the outside, and then we have to trace it back to the origin of the symptom or find the offending lesion. So we have to kind of find the lesion. And so it's kind of like being a detective because it makes sense. So something breaks in one place and you trace it back and it makes sense where the issue came from. And so that is one of the reasons why I became a neurologist and why I think it's really cool, but also why it's kind of nerdy. And interestingly enough, when I chose neurology, I actually had never done a neurology rotation. Hey, Auntie Weena. So when I chose neurology, I went to Morehouse School of Medicine. Yay, MSM. I went to Morehouse, and so we didn't have a neurology rotation at the time when I was a third-year student. So I went through all my other rotations, and I felt like I wanted to do neurology, but I'd never done it. And so I literally did all of my essays, I put in all my applications, and my neurology rotation happened to be set up right after I finished putting in all my applications. So I was praying that I would like it, and good thing I did. So I actually chose it kind of blindly, but it wound up being a really great choice for me because I like the subject matter. In terms of MS, when I went to the Medical College of Georgia, I had an opportunity to do a rotation with Dr. Mary Hughes, who is an amazing neurologist. And she had opened an MS center in Augusta. And so I had the opportunity to work with her. And at that point, I knew that I was in love with MS. And so the things that I love about MS are that I really get to build a relationship with my patients. So I know them very well. So most of the time, if my nurse says, hey, Dr. Williams, Miss So-and-so called, I know that person off the top of my head. because it really is like a journey, right? So you start with this diagnosis that's very scary and very frightening to many people. There's a fear of the unknown, and then I get to kind of walk them through that process. And oftentimes we're in one spot in the beginning and we're in a whole different spot mentally and physically, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. And so I get to kind of walk that out with people and their families. I meet their moms or dads, I meet their kids, I meet their husbands or wives. So it really is like being a part of people's family. And so I love that part of it. I think the other interesting thing about MS, or multiple sclerosis, is that it's so different. And so to steal a saying from one of my colleagues, I don't remember who, is that if you've seen one person with MS, you've seen one person with MS, because everybody is literally so different. The way people present, the way their symptoms change, the way they have relapses, the way their treatment needs to be changed is so different. So it's very challenging, and there is never a dull moment, I would say that. But you just get to walk through life with people kind of at some of their highest points and also at some of their lowest points. And I consider it a blessing and an honor to get to be a part of that journey and to offer some advice. I offer medicine advice. I also offer life advice as well. Hopefully it's well received. But that's really the thing that I love about what I do. And that's why I do what I do, because I really can help people and provide hope for people. So MS is my specialty. I also do some general neurology. I work with stroke and some other specialties as well. In terms of my love of music, so it's kind of like I'm a right brain and a left brain person. So I have been singing since I was a kid. And so music has always been a huge part of my life. I'm a singer. I don't know that I can call myself a musician. I play a little bit of the guitar, and I play the piano as well, but I am a music connoisseur. I love music, and I listen to all kinds of music. I listen to anything from R&B, some hip hop, more kind of old school hip hop. I'm not necessarily new school hip hop, but lots of old school hip hop, meaning 90s, 80s, some 2000s. I listen to opera. I've done opera performance classes. I've done chorus. The only things I don't really listen to is, kind of old school country music, except for the Judds. I love the Judds. And I don't listen to much hard rock, like heavy metal. So other than that, I'm game for just about anything. And you can find me at a Coldplay concert or a Beyonce concert. So, anything in between. And I've always wanted to find a way to pair my two favorite subject matters, which are neurology and music. And actually, when I graduated from residency, I did a grand rounds on musical disorders in neurology. So you will be really amazed at the different things that the brain can process concerning music. For instance, there are disorders where people can recognize a song if you sing it, but if you ask them to sing it, they won't be able to sing it. So things like something simple like happy birthday. So there are different types of language problems where people can recognize and they can't sing it, or they can sing it, but they may not recognize it if you say the words to them. And there are also different types of dystonia or finger issues that musicians can have. People can actually have things called musicogenic seizures, where music could make them actually be a trigger for epilepsy. And so there are all different kinds of ways that music is processed in the brain. And I find it so fascinating that our brains have this way of kind of compensating and retaining music, and how music is just spread out in so many different areas of our brain. And it takes so many different parts to process music, to sing it, to recognize it, to remember it. And even if you play an instrument, especially as a child, it can actually rewire your brain, which is really cool. So stay tuned, because I'll be doing some things with music and neurology coming up in the future. But if you see me posting about music, it's because it is my other favorite topic to talk about is music. And so music and neurology are my two favorite things. So a little bit about treatment, and I want to pause and talk about this because I encountered some things today that really made me think about it, and really made me think about the importance of treatment for multiple sclerosis. I'm not going to talk about specific treatments. I'm not going to kind of get into the nitty gritty. I just kind of want to talk about it in a broad sense. So in this day and age, there's certainly many things that we can do to better ourselves. There's diet, there's exercise, taking care of ourselves, decreasing our stress, and all of those things are very important. All of those things are very important to our overall health. And for a person living with MS, those things are important, right? So we definitely want people to be exercising, taking care of their bodies, making sure that they're treating other conditions that need to be treated, making sure that we're eating a well-balanced, healthy diet. Many people often ask me about diet and its role in MS. And they're not necessarily specific diets that treat MS, but most people do well if they're eating a healthy, well-balanced diet. And the way that I kind of look at it is that 9 times out of 10, when we're putting it in our mouths, we know if we should be eating it or not, right? Bonbons, donuts, you shouldn't eat them, right? Versus a healthy salad without, 2 coats of dressing and, lots of nuts and all other kinds of things. So those things are very important, but I also want to stress the importance of conventional medicine in some cases. So I had someone that I was with today who was very hesitant about medication and who didn't want to be treated. And so we spent a lot of time kind of talking about the history of MS. So if we back up and think about MS in a broad sense, MS is a disease that we have known about since the 1800s, right? So Dr. Charcot, who basically spent all his time at the hospital, and he was the father of neurology, basically learned everything about neurology or most things, discovered, the connection between the symptoms and the lesions in the brain with MS back in the 1800s, like 1868. There are also some recorded diaries of people who describe symptoms of MS as early as the 1400s. So there's been a long time that we've known about MS. And when we talk about treatment, treatments did not become available. There was no approved treatment for MS until 1993. So it's a very long time to see how people did without treatment. And so what we recognize is from 1993 until now, 2018, there are 14 approved. Hey, Dr. Andrea, there are 14 approved treatments for MS. And so the amazing thing is that since 2010, there's almost been a new treatment every year for MS. And that is a very fast pace of approval and of revolution of treatment for any field. I don't know very many fields where things are developing that quickly, where there's something new almost every year that is unique, right, in the way that it works. So it's not necessarily that we have a bunch of treatments that have the same mechanism or work the same way. It's really, they're all unique therapies that are coming out almost every year. So it's a great time in the field of MS and for people living with MS because we have a lot of things that we could do that we couldn't even do 6 or 7 years ago. So, the importance of treatment is that there are a couple of things that we're trying to accomplish. So we're trying to prevent relapses or those new symptoms. We're trying to slow progression, right? Because it can be a progressive disease over time. And we're trying to prevent spots or new lesions on MRI. So those are our objectives. And the reason that that's important is because we know that the earlier we start treatment, generally the better people do. And so sometimes I have to remind people that if we look at it in a broad perspective, it wasn't even just a little over 20 years ago that we actually have, it wasn't that long ago where we did not have really anything that we could do for people living with MS besides treat them symptomatically. So, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit and just stress the importance of treatment because there are things that we can do to improve people's quality of life significantly. And I think that it's very important to remember that if you're having issues with what the doctor is prescribing, or if you have issues with the treatment that you're doing, reach out and let somebody know. Because there are things that we can do. I tell most of my patients or all of my patients that there generally is something that we can do. There's a treatment that we can find that is tolerable that will also treat your MS. There's no reason for your treatment to make your life miserable. Back when we only had certain types of treatments and everyone was taking some of our injection therapy, for the people that didn't tolerate those well, it was kind of a dismal outlook because we thought that's how they were going to have to be treated forever. But there's so many different options now. There's so many things that we can do, and it's so important to let someone know if you're having trouble. If you're having trouble taking it, there are different things that we can do to try to make it easier because the goal is to improve quality of life, right? I tell all of my patients, my goal is for us to have social visits, right? So my goal is for you not to come in and necessarily have new problems, but for us to talk about your kids. I can show you pictures of my babies, Sarah and Chase. I can show you our latest Christmas card. You can show me pictures of your kids. We can talk about your vacation. And then the MS, is basically the minor thing that we talk about. So I just kind of want to get on for a second and stress that because it's so important. It really is not hopeless. When people talk about MS, they talk about the fact that there's no cure. But if you think about it, there really aren't cures for most diseases, right? In medicine, right? We treat them, right? So there are not a lot of things that we actually cure. So there are many things that we treat, however, and there are many things that we can stabilize if they are treated properly. Anyway, so that's all I have to say this evening. And so I'll come back on next week and probably talk a little bit more specifically about other things about MS. I'll talk a little bit about some of the research I'm doing. I'll have some more music next week. So if you see me posting about music again, my loves are music and neurology. If you're not already following me, you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook, Dr. Mitzi Joy, MD, DrMitziJoimD. That's my handle on all of my social media profiles. I'm also on LinkedIn, Dr. Mitzi Joy Williams. And so I love to see you guys. I love to hear from everybody. Please share the video if you know anyone who's living with MS or who is interested in MS. And I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday nights. This will be my show time, Monday nights at 8:30. And I look forward to seeing you guys and talking to you guys soon. So everyone have a wonderful evening, and I will see you guys next week. All right, bye-bye.